UFC 328 Chimaev versus Strickland takes place this weekend at Newark, New Jersey. And I'm going to be going through the entire card, starting with the early prelims and ending with the main event, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. And this is a stacked card, ladies and gentlemen, from start to finish, banger after banger after banger. And I'm quite looking forward to it. You know, we're coming off a really high wave from last weekend's card, and let's follow it into this week. Let's start off with the early prelim opener of Clayton Carpenter and Jose Ochoa. Listen, man, both these guys are young prospects in the flyweight division. You know, the flyweight division in general is filled with these young killers like Tatsuro Taira, 27 years old, is taking on Joshua Van, 24 years old, later on in the co-main. But we'll get to that. Let's talk about this matchup right here. Clayton Carpenter, man, he's not that great. He does not have good takedown defense whatsoever. He got UD'd by Tigir, but, you know, Tigir is Tigir. But his last and most recent loss was to Rafael Filho, and even then we saw how Rafael Filho performed against Cody Durden 2 weeks ago, and let's just say it was lackluster, to say the least. And I think that Ochoa, on the side of Ochoa, on the other hand, the man from Peru, and I understand that they're both 3-2, but look at who he's lost to. He's lost to Asu Ambalayev and the current and one of the top 5 challengers right now, Loner Kavanaugh, and we're going to go with Ochoa in this fight. I think that Ochoa is going to be a step ahead from Carpenter from the start of the belt. I got to be honest with you here. When it comes to the striking, he's very dynamic. He's very bouncy. He's very heavy-handed for flyweight as well. Even when it comes to his jiu-jitsu and wrestling game, I have confidence in it, especially when it comes to him being taken down. His scrambles are really dynamic and very explosive, and I think he's going to set a pace that Carpenter's not going to be able to match. And so we're going to have to pick Jose Ochoa, and if I had to pick a method, we're going to go with decision. He might find himself a round 3 finish. I doubt it. This is the flyweight division after all. And Ochoa, even though he's a heavy-handed guy, Clayton Carpenter does like to bounce around the cage a lot, so it'd be hard to line up that perfect kill shot. So we're going to go with Jose Ochoa by decision. Moving up the card, we have Basangsur Susurkayev taking on Jordan Santos. Basangsur Susurkayev is coming off that win against Eric McConaughey, where he was rocked, to be honest with you. And if he didn't get that finish, I don't know, man. He seemed like he was in a little bit of danger there. And even before that, Eric Nolan, who is actually a 170er who came up to middleweight to fight him, dropped him as well. You know, Basangsur Susurkayev, when he's out there, I think he's got a little bit of imposter syndrome. You know, he's very performative. He's bouncing around. He swings his arms around. He keeps his hands by his waist, but not in the sense of, you know, just to throw him from his waist, but to taunt his opponent. And if he keeps that behavior up, his chin is ripe for the taking, to be honest with you. He can get fraud checked by a lot of people in this division, but I don't think that Jordan Santos is one of those people. You know, Jordan Santos is coming off that win against Danny Barlow, where he bounced around, popped that jab out, introduced to blob wrestling, if you know what I mean by the blob wrestling, and secured himself a decision. But the Jordan Santos, he's very flat-footed. He likes to plod, so he'll come at you, he'll stay stationary, and then he'll cut the angle and go around the cage. But he does not throw strikes from angles. He does not throw strikes while it's moving. He's a plod and plod first, throw after striker. And I think Basangsur Susurkayev, with the fact that he's so quick, the fact that he's got so many dynamic strikes, the fact that he's all over the place, I think that he's going to be a step ahead of Santos when it comes to those angles, when it comes to the exchanges, when it's on the movement side. And Jordan Santos has a chin, and I'm not been really impressed by Basangsur Susurkayev, if I'm being honest with you here. I wouldn't say he was losing to Eric McConaughey, but it was a surprisingly difficult fight for him, and I think that if Eric McConaughey almost took you to a decision, I think Jordan Santos could definitely take you to a decision. And Basangsur Susurkayev, he does fade in the later rounds, but he comes out really hot in the first 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if Basangsur Susurkayev takes the first 2, maybe even takes the third, and wins himself a unanimous decision victory. Moving up the card, we have Pat Sabatini taking on William Gomis. Pat Sabatini is coming off that win against Chepe Mariscal, and before that it was who's that motherfucker? Yeah, Joe Anderson Brito. William Gomis, on the other hand, is coming off that win against Robert Ruchala, which was a great win. We'll talk about that soon. And before that, he lost a split decision to Haider Emil, and looking back on that now, that didn't really go out well. Both these guys have fought. Joe Anderson Brito, you know, I was really tossing and turning who I was going to pick in this fight, because William Gomis is legit, man. but he's only a point striker, and I'll get to that in a second. But William Gomis is legit, man, and he's a plus 180 in this fight. I understand that Topology is showing a plus 165, but he is a plus 180, and I was kind of shocked because on the side of Pat Sabatini, he's kind of uncomfortable on the feet, if I'm being honest with you. He's really stiff, and he's telegraphing those takedowns. But the thing is, even though he telegraphs those takedowns, even though he's a stiffer striker, the thing about Pat Sabatini is he's relentless. He's going to absolutely wrap himself around you like an anaconda. He's going to wrap around you like a snake. And he's relentless with the takedown attempts as well. Like, you can stuff a couple, and William Gomis does have great takedown accuracy and takedown defense. He's got really good takedown defense. But Pat Sabatini puts this wrestling pace on that it's hard to match, man. And most people they fall and they succumb to that pace, and they either get subbed in the later rounds or lose a decision. You know, if you are not able to keep Pat Sabatini off you, or if you don't have that one punch hitter quitter power, it's going to be hard to get respect from the side of Pat Sabatini with the only loss in recent memory being Diego Lopez. And you know how Diego Lopez caught him, and this is the only route to victory I can see for William Gomis, is when Pat Sabatini engages in a clinch against the fence and he wants to break off, he breaks off with his hands down to the ground. And when he breaks off with his hands to the ground, he can get clipped. And that's exactly what Diego did. He clipped him with a left hook. And I think that Gomis, being the long rangy striker, could land that left hook and could knock out Sabatini. However, it's just hard to pick a guy in William Gomis where he doesn't have a presence of threat in the cage, in the octagon, if I'm being honest with you. He's not a really threatening guy. And if you pick a clean fight with him, if you go with him toe-to-toe, yeah, he'll take that fight any day of the week. But when you're up in his face and you're only pushing pressure on him and pushing him against the cage and landing takedowns, and you're not allowing him to set up his shots and catch his pace and measure his angles and measure his reach and so forth, William Gomis struggles very much. And I think that Pat Sabatini, I got to edge it to him, and I got to edge it to him by rear naked choke in the third round. Moving up the card, we have Roman Kopylov versus Marco Tulio. Oh my God, this was another fight where I was tossing and turning on who to pick, because I really wanted to pick Roman Kopylov, the guy who looks like Chase Hooper. But I can't, bro. His last couple performances, he's just been so gun shy, and he's completely abandoned the wrestling aspect of his game that he does have. He's not been pulling the trigger whatsoever. To be honest with you, like, Gregory Rodriguez and Paulo Costa are fair losses because they are at the top, and Paulo Costa now is maybe in line for an interim championship belt at light heavyweight. But the fact of the matter is, it's not about the loss that concerns me. It's about the fact that Roman Kopylov, when he's not confident in the cage, he doesn't pull the trigger for some reason. And you cannot hesitate against a guy like Marco Tulio. Marco Tulio is a big middleweight. This guy's a big boy. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's got good wrestling of his own. If Roman Kopylov does try to wrestle, he's got great jiu-jitsu game. He's got a great get-up game. He's really great with his striking, but he kind of tries to display all his tools, and that's what got him clipped against CLD. In my personal opinion, I mean, CLD did land a perfectly timed spinning back fist, but I feel like Marco Tulio does too much in the cage sometimes. You know, he spins constantly, he rips weird shots, and does a lot of explosive movements in the first two, and gets really tired towards the end of round two. And I think it's irrelevant. I think he's going to be calm and composed in this fight. And the fact that the grappling edge could go to Tulio, the fact that Kopylov's recent performances have been so gun-shy, it's like, I would be a fool to pick Kopylov, and I have to go with Marco Tulio. I am surprised at these odds, though, because he did just get laid out by CLD, but it's irrelevant, man. This is a new matchup. This is a new day. And I'm going to go with Marco Tulio. I'm going to go with Marco Tulio by split decision. I think that Roman Kopylov might be able to edge some of the rounds. I don't really see a finish coming out of this fight. If Kopylov were to win, the only thing I could say is that Marco Tulio does tend to lean down a lot, and in order to parry the shots, and Kopylov could land a switch head kick to Tulio's head in like a Leon Rocky Edwards moment, but chances are Tulio is going to take this on the scorecards. Moving up the card, we have Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon, Battle of the Unks. I think Miller's never going to fucking stop fighting. This guy's going to fight till he's in the grave. And on the side of Jared Gordon, he's a similar dude. And let's not forget, man. People fucking forget, man. He got robbed against Paddy the Batty Pimlet. And I'm going to go with Jared Gordon in this fight. And I'm going to go with Jared Gordon by KO. I understand that both these guys are older guys and that, they're both diminished in their careers. And Jared Gordon's coming off that KO loss, but it's irrelevant because let's talk about his last KO loss. Dude, the guy got hit by a car during fight week, but because, the UFC doesn't give a shit, he still had to fight. And a lot of people say, I wonder how that fight would have gone if it were not for him getting hit by a fucking car. And on the side of Jim Miller, he just came off that loss to Chase Hooper where he was like held down and controlled for 30 rounds. And it's Chase Hooper. And Jared Gordon, man, he's a really, really good boxer. This guy is a fundamental boxer. He rips to the body. He goes up top. He doesn't really throw a lot of kicks. He likes to close in the range and introduce the boxing game. But he does have one weakness, which is the leg kicks, because, boxers are very heavy on that lead leg. We just saw that against J. Damon Protez, and maybe Miller's going to be able to take advantage of that, because Miller does have a dirty leg kick. But inevitably, Miller's 42, man, and he's a rough 42. This guy's had he's 38-19, and majority of that, I would say 90% of that is in the UFC, which is crazy. I think he's the longest active fighter of all time, and he just cuts up really easy. I think it was another battle of the Unks. Yeah, King Green, the one against King Green, dude, he got battered up and he cut really easy. He's got a lot of scar tissue above his eyes, and even if Jared Gordon's not able to land that KO shot, which I think he will, he could take it on the cards just purely off damage. I think that Jim Miller, if he really wants to come out here and win this fight, he's going to introduce the grappling, but Jared Gordon's got a really solid takedown defense, and he's really good at closing in the range, and his nickname is pretty appropriate, bro. The Flash. He's rapid, quick, dude. This guy's quick as a flash, and we're going to go with Jared Gordon, and I'm going to go with Jared Gordon by knockout in round 2. Now, moving up the card, we have Grant Dawson taking on Mateusz Rebecki. Listen, when this fight initially got announced, I thought to myself, Grant Dawson, I get that he came off that brutal loss against Manuel Torres, where I called Manuel Torres, El Loco, irrelevant. And I was going to be like, yeah, this guy still got really good grappling. But then I also remembered the Bobby Green KO loss. And I get that you can say, that was a perfectly timed shot, and he just got laid out from it because he was on a huge win streak prior to that. But time and time again, Grant Dawson is so uncomfortable on the feet, man. He's tight, high guard, scared. He's scared on the feet. When it comes to the standing department, dude, if you're a guy who's a clean fighter, like let's say even though there's separate weight divisions, like a William Gomis, a guy who's a French kickboxer, pops out his jab and leg kicks and whatnot, but you're not a very threatening guy, Grant Dawson is able to use that against you by being the pressure forward striker and landing those takedowns and going into his grappling game, because that's what he's known for. That's what Grant Dawson's known for. But if you're a guy like Mateusz Rebecki, where you're pressure-orientated, heavy-handed, with somewhat decent takedown defense, he crumbles, dude. He's got no chin. And he's very hittable. Even if you've got no chin, the defense should be, excellent, but he doesn't have excellent defense. He has really poor defense. He keeps his guard up way too high. You can rip to the body. You can go up top. You can open up and create angles on Grant Dawson very easily. And Mateusz Rebecki, I understand you look at his last 5, it's rough. It's 2 and 3, and you see all these reds and these L's, but look who he's been fighting, bro. They keep giving him matchups of doom. One of the losses being Diego Ferreira, which was just an unlucky, he got clipped. One of them being Chris Duncan, his buddy. And the other one being Ludovic Klein. And even before that, his win against Maeltic Orbelai. I think the fight against Maeltic Orbelai is the main reason why I got to pick Rebecki here by KO. Because Maeltic is a grappler that's levels above Dawson. And I think he's got way better striking. And I don't mean way better striking now, because obviously he's made improvements. I'm talking about even back then he had way better striking than Grant Dawson. And he's way more of a dog with a chin. And he struggled so much against Rebecki. And Rebecki's a heavy-handed dude, If this makes it into the later rounds and Grant Dawson is able to get the takedowns, maybe Grant Dawson can find himself in a sub in round 3, because Mateusz Rebecki goes really hard in the motherfucking paint for the first 2. But inevitably, Mateusz Rebecki, I think he's got really good takedown defense. I think he's really explosive. And I think that the fact that his striking style is pressure is going to be too much for Grant Dawson. And I think he's going to be able to chin Grant Dawson honestly in round 1. That's what we're going with. They're going with Mateusz Rebecki to chin Grant Dawson in round 1. Oh god, this is going to be such a banger of a card. Moving up the card, we have the real. If you know this is what the actual hardcore fans are looking forward to. Yaroslav Amosov is taking on Yoel Alvarez. Both of these guys are legit. Both these guys are huge prospects that people have been looking forward to for a long time. Joel just made his debut into welterweight against Vicente Luque, before that Drakkar Klose, and he's a guy who always gets finishes. On the side of Yaroslav Amosov, this guy's a real badass, if I gotta be honest with you. This is a little sidebar, I'll make the story really quick. He used to fight for Bellator, he was a champion of Bellator, and then the Ukraine war broke out. He went and signed up and enlisted, and during the war there's a video of him going through an underground tunnel to go to his old house to retrieve the Bellator belt, which is a badass story, man. And I want to pick him, I really do, but I'm kind of leaning the side of Yoel Alvarez, because Yaroslav Amosov, if you see his fight against Jaren Jackson on, I think it was PFL or Bellator, they're the same thing now, they got bought out, but he really commits to takedowns. And if you're able to shuck him off you, bro, he's another guy where he's so wrestle first. He doesn't abandon it for a little bit and set up his striking, make you think about his strikes to then set up a takedown. He's a guy who's just going to keep throwing takedowns at you, throwing takedowns at you, throwing takedowns, and he's got nothing else for you. And Yoel Alvarez has good takedown defense. He's got good jiu-jitsu of his own. He's got a good get-up game. And he has a really dirty jab, and he's got a really dirty lead hook that worries me in this fight, because Yaroslav Amosov, he's another guy who's pretty flat-footed and plods forward. And the fact that he plods forward makes me think that Yoel can catch him, because... let me just fix this really quickly. Oh, I know that's pretty. The window's open. There's some construction going on, and that was a pretty bad look for lazy MMA. But let's ignore that for a second. Yaroslav Amosov plods towards you one-dimensionally, but Yoel Alvarez cuts angles. He's very light on his feet. He's always on the balls of his toes, and I think that if he cuts an angle, dude, he can really land a really mean left hook that could put out Yaroslav Amosov. Now, with that all being said, though, Yaroslav Amosov, his grappling, even though I rated Yoel's grappling as well, his grappling is on a different level. And if he really does get down, Yoel is able to hold him down for a prolonged period of time, he can get a sub. He can most definitely get a sub. But I don't think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think this is going to be a banger of a fight, and I have to lean Yoel Alvarez just because he's got a lot more tools in his backpack, and I don't think Yaroslav has as many tools as he does. Also, the way that they move, but whatever. Moving up the card, we have Atiba Gutierrez versus Ozzy Diaz, man. I'm not going to sit here and give you a crazy breakdown because it's not necessary, man. Atiba Gutierrez by KO, probably in the first or second round. I'm kind of sick and tired of this. Yeah, I love seeing an Atiba slime out, dude. It is really entertaining, but they keep giving him jobbers, and if you don't know what a jobber is, it's a guy who actually has a job and just happens to fight MMA on the side. They keep giving him jobbers. I don't know, maybe because they want to build him because he's 24. Maybe they want to give him more experience because he's only 10-1. But I'm kind of sick and tired of it. I want to see this guy fight like an actual contender, and it doesn't even have to be in the rankings. You want to build him up. Let's give him an unranked guy who's really solid, like even a CLD who's lower in the rankings. And I don't know, bro. I'm sick and tired of Atiba Gutierrez keep getting these layups. I want to see him actually get a challenge. He had a guy in Andre Pulev who's not even really a challenge, and Andre Pulev was able to survive for all 3 rounds and even land on Atiba and frustrate him. So I don't know. I'm sick and tired of this. But Atiba by first round KO because, Francis Ngannou's fucking cousin or whatever the fuck. Anyways, moving up the card, we have the main card opener of King Green against Jeremy Stephens. If this was 2012, I would be jumping up and down right now. But this is the Big 26. It's another battle of the Unks. And before I get into this breakdown, Jeremy Stephens' career is so weird because I know he used to fight in UFC for a long period of time, but before that, I'm talking about in recent years. Let's look at his 5. Okay, so he's in the UFC against Mason Jones. He was in the PFL and he lost by sub. He was on the PFL again. He was on the PFL, and then before Mateus Gamrot too. There's in between this, which is not showing, is bare knuckle. So this guy went from bare knuckle to PFL to Bellator to UFC. This guy's like probably the only free agent in all of MMA because, Dana keeps his fucking fighters on a leash. But I'm going to go with Jeremy Stephens here. What? Listen, Jeremy Stephens One weakness is he's very heavy on that lead leg. He is very easy to chop at that lead leg. And the fact that Bobby Green runs around so much and is talking shin, whatever, and he's so quick on his feet, he could be chopping at that lead leg. But here's the thing, dude. Bobby Green fights with his hands down. And I get that's his style and whatever, and that works against the younger guys. We're having a clean fight. He'll just pop at you, change angle, leg kick, knee up the middle, boom, 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 pop, pop, pop. But when he's fighting another Unk and he's fighting a guy like Jeremy Stephens, the guy who's confident, a lot of these young guys, they get overwhelmed by Bobby Green, but I don't think Jeremy Stephens is going to get overwhelmed at all, if I'm being honest with you. I think Jeremy Stephens is going to eat a couple of those leg kicks, push Bobby Green up against the cage, and land a mean overhand right and secure himself a knockout. Bobby Green's chin has been gone. And it's not even just because Jeremy Stephens has crazy power in his punches. It's also that loss against Mason Jones where he was able to batter up Jones and give him a tough fight at 39 years old. And I think that if he's able to give Mason Jones, who's a legit prospect, such a tough fight and almost finish him, I won't say almost finish him, I'm overdoing it a little bit, but land on him and crack him, I think he can crack and lay out King Green. But regardless, I'm leaning Jeremy Stephens here, and I'm leaning him by KO. This is going to be a banger fight, dude. The Unks are always scrapping, bro. It's a dying breed. It's becoming more of a sport, which I love and respect because it's getting really high level. But these Unks, bro, they love to scrap. Dying breed, man. Anyways, let's go up the card. We have Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. Oh, my goodness. I've been wanting to talk about this fight this entire week. I have been thinking about this fight this entire week, man. I'm going with Joaquin Buckley, and I'm going with Joaquin Buckley by fucking slime out KO. Listen, bro. He opened up as a plus 185, and now he got bet all the way down to a plus 140. I snapped him at plus 165 because I'm fucking lazy MMA. But a lot of the reason that I feel like Joaquin is the underdog here is the sheer fact of his performance against Kamaru Usman. But that's Kamaru Usman, bro. And you're trying to tell me in the time period that he's been off since that Kamaru Usman loss, this guy's not worked on his grappling? And even on the side of Sean Brady, he's got great grappling, he's got great jiu-jitsu, but he is a fish out of water on the feet. He got standing TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad, and even though his grappling is good, his grappling gets good when he's able to pressure his opponents, not when he's being pressured. We just saw Michael Morales slime him out. It's not just because Michael Morales is the bigger man or just the better fighter. It's at the fact that Michael Morales plods towards you. He's on his back foot, and it's so much harder to shoot a takedown when you're off your back foot. And Sean Brady's not got the cleanest judoka throws or anything, so he can't step in and so forth. And on top of that, dude, I feel like his resume is incredibly overrated. And it was years ago, light years ago, Gilbert Burns from 3 years, Gilbert Burns. Right? Before Leon Edwards, Gilbert Burns from a year and 7 months ago, not 4 years ago Gilbert Burns where he was a legit win. This is a recent Gilbert Burns, a recent Leon Edwards, and Kevin Gastelum. And before that, he got slimed out. As much as Bilal can slime someone out, he got slimed out by Bilal Muhammad. And Joaquin is a mean striker who's really heavy-handed, who throws everything he's got into those punches. And on top of that, he's a strong motherfucker. I think he's going to be able to push Brady up against the cage and land one of those mean-ass left hooks of his and put him out like he did against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think even against the fight in Kamaru Usman, even in the 5th round, he's plodding towards you. And the fact that Sean Brady's going to be suffocated in this fight, I think is going to be a little bit too much for him. And I think Joaquin's going to be able to find himself a knockout shot in rounds 2 and 3. So we have to go with New Mensa, Joaquin Buckley, and I can't wait because I think he's going to slime out Sean Brady, if I'm being honest with you. Moving up the card, we have Alexander Volkov versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Volkov is coming off that controversial. I picked Volkov, but we all know he didn't win that fight against Jailton Almeida. I get it. You can say damage and striking and whatever, but he got taken on way too many times to have won that fight. On the side of Waldo Cortez Acosta, he's coming off that KO win against Derek Lewis, and I have no clue what the fuck I was doing picking Derek Lewis. He didn't even get KO'd. He just kind of got jabbed and stepped on his heel wrong and just went down the ground and accepted a loss. Before that, he won against Ante Delija and Shamil Gazayev. So I don't know how well those fights have aged, but regardless of that, I've been feeling like Volkov has low-key been fading a little bit, and it's weird because I thought he beat Gain like that, and he also beat Pavlovich, and he's beat a lot of people, but he's pretty chinny. But I don't know, dude. This is such a weird fight to pick because Waldo is a boxer first, but he's got low kicks and he's got some grappling, which I don't think is going to be. Maybe he could slip in a takedown. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he slips in a takedown, just to throw his opponent off. But Volkov is a real mean machine, Russian, 6'7". He's got the reach, he's got the height. And if these guys are only doing a striking match, I could see Volkov breaking down the lead leg of Waldo Cortez Acosta, landing some knees up the middle, peppering him with jabs. But with all that said, man, the momentum's on the side of Costa. Age is on the side of Costa. I would say even power's on the side of Costa. And Volkov's been chinned a few times, man. And he's been in this game for a long time, 39-11. But I think Cortez Acosta really wants to get into the rankings. And I think he's going to play this fight smart. I think he's going to play boxing range. I think he's going to introduce some takedowns. I think he's going to try to steal this on the judges' scorecards. I don't think he's going to come out here reckless and try to find a finish like he most of the time does, because he knows the danger he's facing in Alexander Volkov. And I think that using his grappling and his mixing of the martial arts, he's going to be able to take this fight on the judges' scorecards. And I'm going to have to lean him, bro. Not a super confident lean, because this card it's a hard fight to pick, because if the Volkov of the Gain fight shows up, man, he can fucking put out Waldo Cortez Acosta. But if the Volkov of last fight shows up, man, and his grappling holes have not been repaired yet, I think Waldo Cortez Acosta has a pretty good chance of taking down Volkov over and over again, peppering those jab, hitting the lead leg, breaking down Volkov, and just being one step ahead of him, maybe stealing 2 out of 3 rounds and securing himself a unanimous decision victory. Moving up, we have the co-main event of the evening, Tatsuro Taira versus Joshua Van. And I'm going with Tatsuro Taira. What? Why? Okay, first of all, I can't believe that Tatsuro Taira is the favorite that he is, but here's the argument I gotta make, okay? And I get that Tatsuro Taira lost to Royval, but man, Tatsuro Taira is a beast, bro. I don't think Joshua Van, and everyone always talks about how Joshua Van has an 80% takedown defense percentage. Joshua Van is the best takedown defense percentage. That's not even a concern. But who is he like defended takedowns against? You know what I mean? He's not really defended takedowns against anybody. And I don't think he's ever had dealt with a guy with takedowns with a guy like Tatsuro Taira. And also on top of that, I think Tatsuro Taira is low-key a 135er sneaking into 125, because he is a big boy for the weight division. I think that loss against Royval, he's upgraded and leveled up since then, and especially that back take he had against Moreno laying down the ground and pound really showed me that he's changed his jiu-jitsu game. He doesn't just commit to one takedown, he also does a lot of chain wrestling now, and he started to put his hands together. He's got enough boxing to earn the respect of Joshua Van, and Joshua Van's only got the boxing. And I just don't think he's ever faced someone like Tatsuro Taira, and I think Tatsuro Taira has way more experience, even though the records are pretty much the same amount of fights except just one off. I'm talking about UFC experience. Tatsuro Taira's had a lot of UFC experience. Joshua Van kind of got beeline to the belt. Like, let's be honest with ourselves here. And did he really even win the belt? Like, I mean, his greatest win is Brandon Royval. I think it was 29-28 split. It might have been UD. I'm not quite sure. But it was a tough fight with Brandon Royval, and people are going to use that May math logic, and I don't think that May math logic applies here. I don't know why Royval didn't grapple against Joshua Van, but I think that Taira's really going to be leaning on his grappling, but I think that his range, he's also got, how many inches of range does he have on him? He's got 5 inches of range. I think he's going to use jabs. He's not going to be throwing heavy like hooks and overhand rights and whatever. He's going to be utilizing jab and basic tools to break down Van, have him occupied with the striking, introduce a grappling, and maybe even secure himself a submission in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I just don't think Joshua Van has ever dealt with a guy who's grappling like Tatsuro Taira, and Tatsuro Taira's been putting his hands together, man. Ever since that Royval loss, he's been putting his hands together. And even that Royval loss, it was a 5-round fight where it was a split decision loss, and Taira didn't look terrible, you know? But I'm fucking hyped for this fight because it's so unpredictable. Because what if Joshua Van, his 80% takedown defense percentage is not bullshit, and he comes out there and puts on a masterclass, dude? But that's just how awesome it would be if he did that, but I don't think he's going to do that. I think Taira is a little bit levels above him, especially in the grappling department. I think to be a champion, you need to have really good grappling, and even Alexander Pantoja himself picked Taira. Maybe it was out of pettiness, but he made a fair point. He's like, dude, a common thing amongst all UFC champions is they have great grappling. You need great grappling. And I think Joshua Van's a little bit untested in the grappling department. I think Taira is really going to put his weight on him here and put on a really good performance and find himself a sub in rounds 4 or 5. I really think so, man. I really think he finds a sub. Maybe even in the earlier rounds, dude. I just think he's going to be suffocating Joshua Van. Now let's go on to the main event of the evening. Khamzat Chimaev takes on Sean Tarzan Strickland. Strickland is coming off that phenomenal, spectacular finish over Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, where he did exactly what I wanted him to do, where I picked Strickland to win that fight, and I loved it because he threw that knee up the middle and got himself the finish, just like I predicted, but I cannot pick him in this fight. I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. It irritates me how fucking good these guys are, these mountain fuckers, in the wrestling compartment. But the thing is, it's not just wrestling, though, because Khamzat legitimately brings something into the UFC that it's never been seen before, which is chain wrestling. See, the thing is, Tarzan Strickland, he's been really working on his takedown defense percentage. Takedown defense in general. I mean, during the suspension he had for like a year and a half, you saw him in the singlet almost every single day. Even before he fought Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, the reason I even picked him to beat Fluffy is that this guy was preparing to face a grappler in Anthony Hernandez or RDR before the fight got booked. And I think that before and after that, he knew that the inevitable person he's going to have to fight is Chimaev. So I think that this guy's been putting in the work. And I think that Sean Strickland can shuck off the initial attempt. But what scares me, and the reason I think Chimaev is going to come out here and get a rear naked choke win, is that it doesn't matter. You stuff the initial one, he'll transition to your back. If he doesn't transition to your back, he'll go into north-south. If he doesn't transition to north-south, he'll go into crucifix. This guy is changing angles. He's changing where his method of approach is to take you down 24/7. He's all over you like a wet blanket. And so with his chain wrestling, I think he's going to be able to sub Strickland in rounds 1 or 2. However, see, I'm giving you what I think is most probable to happen, what is most likely going to happen, but I want to pick Sean Strickland. See, I'm telling you what I think is going to happen, though, in Khamzat Chimaev, but I'm picking Sean in the scenario that Sean is able to shuck off the takedown attempts for rounds 1 and 2. Even though Chimaev went 5 with DDP, it's because he went 5 because he was able to coast 5 in crucifix. So he didn't take a lot of energy out of him. But we've notoriously seen him against Kamaru Usman, against Gilbert Burns, against others, that he does not have the greatest cardio, and it's because he has a compromised immune system. And Sean Strickland has notoriously amazing cardio, and if Chimaev gets a little bit frustrated here because he's going, he disrespect me. If he comes out there like a tard, and like he did against Gilbert Burns, because he's like, he disrespect me, brother. When he starts throwing hands, I think that Sean Strickland is going to be really intelligent, and I think he's going to rip to the body. Because if you rip to the body, you rip to the legs. I think he's going to target the body and the legs more than the head, because he wants to break down the tools of Chimaev for the takedowns. If he's able to break down and take away the tools of Chimaev and just take off 20% from those takedown attempts and those transitions, Sean Strickland can take this fight over in 3, 4, and 5. And Khamzat Chimaev, I don't want to say he's chinny, because we haven't had a lot of testing pool to say he's chinny, but against Gilbert Burns, he got dropped 2 times. And they weren't even the cleanest of strikes. And Sean Strickland's got some mustard in his hands, but the issue is, man, he doesn't have one-punch knockout power, which is kind of something you need against this wrestler. Even if he's got the ability to break down Khamzat Chimaev, to finish, you got to find the finish, and you got to have one-punch KO power. And I'm scared to admit that he doesn't have that. He really does not have that. Even when he dropped Izzy to the ground, those follow-up shots were like pillows, man. And I don't know, bro. It fucking breaks my heart that I have to say Khamzat Chimaev is going to probably find a sub in rounds 1 or 2 by rear naked choke. Probably in round 1, if I'm being honest with you. But man, Sean could do it, and I really think he's undervalued here. Not in terms of betting, but in terms of people's predictions. Because I haven't even looked at Tapology's percentages yet. Let's take a peep. Oh, 82%. Actually, it's 18%. 20% of people actually think Sean Strickland can win this.
But here's the thing, you guys. This Chimaev is relentless.
And he is. He really is relentless. And I think that Chimaev is going to be able to lock up a sub in round 1, utilizing his chain wrestling. But Sean, if you are wanting to play the Sean side, Sean has to break down Chimaev in rounds 1 and 2. Shuck off those takedown attempts. 3, 4, and 5, Sean Strickland could take over. I think that if Strickland even has like a somewhat competitive rounds 1 and 2, he'll win this fight. I think that would be a indicator, and I think you should be looking out for live bets. I think that we really have to see how the initial attempt is going to happen in this fight. And it was so easy on the side of DDP, you could immediately assume what was going to happen following that. So yeah, man, we're going to go with Khamzat Chimaev by submission, which breaks my heart, but I hope for another great upset from the side of Sean Strickland. He did it once before against Izzy, and he could do it again against Chimaev. Well, that's been UFC 328 recapped. Let me know down below who you think is going to win in the main event. Please consider liking and subscribing, because it does help out the channel a lot, and I'm going to be posting a lot more consistently. Lazy MMA, lazy analysis, serious results.